Hey everybody, it's Trags alongside Alex Barth and Evan Lazar following a 38-7 Patriots win over the Miami Dolphins. Sony Michel might not be a bust after all, guys. 25 carries for 112 yards and his first career touchdown run. Also, of course, his first career 100-yard game. We'll start with you, Evan. Why was Sony Michel so much more effective in this game than he was the previous 2 weeks?
The big boys up front helped Sony Michel out a whole lot today. They said that they put the emphasis on themselves. Shaq Mason, David Andrews in the locker room post-game said they put the emphasis on themselves to get Sony going. They got Sony going early and often today, and we got to see some of that burst and acceleration into the secondary that I've been talking about with Sony Michel a lot, and that is why he kind of got off today and was able to get going. And this is a great lesson for everybody on patience with young players, right?
Think?
After 2 games,
what's
a lot of
patience
people
in New England, though?
Yeah.
That's fair, but a lot of people were ready to bury this kid. A kid that, after the game, basically said that, you know what, the game early on, especially against Jacksonville, was moving a little bit too quickly for him.
Right.
He wasn't completely seeing the reads and his reads off of his blocks very well. Today, he turned it all around. He said he felt like he belonged today, and it looked like it.
Alex, I thought to Evan's point, the carries of 13 yards and then 14 yards back-to-back in that first quarter really got him going.
And it was, they were asked about this, Belichick and Brady, a lot in the postgame, the complementary football in one phase of the game helping another. I think because they were able to pass the ball better, teams had to back off. You didn't have Michel facing 7 or 8 guys at the line of scrimmage, and it allowed him to use that explosiveness, Evan, like you've talked about, to get off the line, get through the line of scrimmage, get himself going, and use that kind of sneaky power that he has. And you could tell after that first big run, like you mentioned, something sort of clicked. He was like, okay, here I am. This is what I'm familiar with. I'm not getting stonewalled at the line of scrimmage every time. And then from there, the confidence just kind of built and built as the game went on.
James White talked about the power with which Sony Michel runs. You mentioned it, Alex. Yep. The power is something I think a lot of fans would like to see between the tackles. You know, we saw it from James White to a degree on his 22-yard sweet feet touchdown run, but is Sony Michel capable of that, Evan?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are kind of expecting Sony Michel to be Dion Lewis and be very shifty, make a lot of guys miss in a short area. That's not who he is. He's a burst guy and a power after the contact guy where he's going to run through people and also make some people miss in the open field, but not necessarily in tight quarters in the line of scrimmage. So you need to get him openings in the offensive line to get him rolling. That's what they were able to do today, and it really paid dividends for them late in the game, especially, I thought, where they were really up big and could kind of coast to this win here. And I just think that with Sony, a lot of people had a lot of high expectations for him. He was the 31st overall pick. They drafted him over a defensive player or maybe a quarterback or someone like that people could get behind a little bit more, and they weren't really behind an early round running back. And today you kind of saw why he was an early round running back, a guy that can carry the ball 25 times in a game, average 4.5 yards a carry, and when you give him the opportunity to get on the edge, as we saw in his touchdown run, as we saw early on in the game, the 2 runs you pointed out, you give him that opportunity to get on the edge and he's gonna, hit some holes.
I hate to bring this name up, but I'm just gonna do it. Lawrence Maroney. Everybody remembers he had a 100-yard game against the Bengals in his rookie year, but then he kind of fell off the cliff. And I think the question Patriots fans want to know about Sony Michel is consistency. Is this a guy that they think consistently can do it pretty much week in and week out? Maybe not 100 yards every single game, but run with authority and run on 3rd and short. Alex?
I mean, I think if he gets the blocking like he did today, there's no reason to think he can't do that. The biggest problem with Lawrence Maroney was he was too impatient. He would sit behind the line of scrimmage, right, and dance and dance and dance and wait for the huge hole to open up, and it never did, and he'd get brought down. Sony Michel's doing exactly the opposite, if anything. More so last week than this week, he was hitting the hole too early. He was being a little impatient, not waiting for the blocks. And Evan, like you said, he talked about the game being too fast for him. He stepped back today. He was a very patient runner. He was a very confident runner. Those were 2 things we really never saw from Lawrence Maroney. No, he was a completely different player. One bad game should not define his career, and I thought that comparison was ludicrous when that was being thrown out last week.
I think that you made a lot of good points. The one run where a lot of people are going to highlight the big runs early on in the game, the touchdown run late in the game, but the one that really kind of caught my eye was a little 9-yard run, a little because he had a bunch of longer runs than that today, where the original blocking was shut down. He was shut down at the line of scrimmage, and he was able to have the vision and the burst to jump to the gap next to him and burst up the seam for 9 yards. Those are the types of little things that you saw from Sony today that we didn't didn't see from him in the first 2 weeks, and I think that speaks to just his confidence growing and his feel for the blocking schemes growing here in New England. And also, they ran a lot of zone stuff today, which I think was what he's comfortable with from coming from Georgia, which is primarily a zone blocking team. Get him some inside zone looks today, get him going early, get him some comfortable schemes that he knows where the blocking is going to be, and you're going to get him going. I think that Alex is right. If you block for this guy, he's going to turn out yards. Now, is he the type of guy like Dion Lewis that's going to make guys miss in the backfield when the blocking isn't there? Probably not. But I think that we're going to just see more and more that those explosive runs down into the secondary. Today, he didn't really break off like a one huge run. I think that huge run is coming if they can get the blocks downfield.
I've got a comparison for you based on what we saw today. Obviously not this level of player, but the type of back, Corey Dillon. Does a little bit of everything very well, and when you get him in space, he's always liable to break one.
All right, hopefully this is the start of something big for Patriots fans in the running game. Sony Michel, his first career 100-yard game, his first career rushing touchdown. The Patriots beat the Dolphins 38-7. We'll have you covered on CLNS Media.